The docking bay of Viral 9 shimmered like a broken halo above the dead world, its skeletal arms stretched across the blackness, catching the faint light of a dying sun. Elias Crane stood at the edge of the hangar platform, the magnetic boots of his suit anchoring him against the subtle tremor of the artificial gravity. Below him, the planet's surface lay barren and fractured, glowing faintly where old wars had scorched the crust. Above him, the stars were scattered like scars, beautiful, distant, unreachable. He had repaired hundreds of ships in his life. Cargo haulers. Smugglers' vessels. Even a few military drones patched together under fire. But never this. Never something that breathed. The vessel before him was enormous, organic in shape, its hull glistening like the shell of a deep-sea creature. It pulsed faintly, veins of light rippling beneath a surface that looked more like translucent skin than metal. The hum it emitted wasn't mechanical, it was tonal, harmonic, almost alive. The Kareth Royal insignia glowed faintly near the prow, a spiral of silver lines that shifted as he looked at them, as though the ship disliked being stared at. A voice crackled through his calm, mechanic Crane. You are to begin immediately. No delays, no deviations. The Queen's vessel must be flight-capable within 6 cycles. Understood, Elias said, though the words felt hollow in his throat. He glanced toward the line of Kareth guards standing in silence along the dock. Their armor shimmered with bioluminescent markings, like the shells of creatures evolved in darkness. They didn't move. Didn't blink. Only watched him with expressionless, opalescent eyes. The airlock hissed open with a wet, serpentine sound. A faint mist escaped, curling around his boots. His visor sensors flickered with warnings, unknown biological particles, unfamiliar temperature gradients, but he ignored them and stepped forward. Inside, the corridors pulsed with soft light. The walls seemed to breathe. Every surface vibrated with faint energy, as if the ship recognized an intruder and was deciding whether to tolerate him. The atmosphere smelled faintly of ozone and saltwater, reminding him of the coastlines of Earth he hadn't seen in a decade. His tools felt small and primitive in this place. He attached diagnostic nodes along the inner hull, scanning the bioreactive membranes for fractures. The readings were chaotic, alive with signals beyond human interpretation. He swore under his breath, recalibrated, tried again. The ship thrummed in answer, a low tone that reverberated through his bones. Then, a whisper. Soft, musical, distant, like wind brushing against glass. He froze. It wasn't the calm, it wasn't in his ears. It was inside his mind. Who touches the heart of my vessel? Elias spun around. The corridor was empty, yet the voice lingered, wrapping around his thoughts like silk. He swallowed. This is Chief Mechanic Elias Crane. I've been ordered to conduct repairs on this ship. I mean no harm. Silence. Then, faint amusement. A human. They send a human into the sanctum. Her tone wasn't hostile, only curious. A ripple of light moved along the walls, tracing the shape of the ship's veins. He could almost feel her observing him, measuring him. I was told the ship's neural conduits were unstable, he said carefully, continuing his scans. If I can restabilize the core, you'll be able to lift off safely. If you fail, you will die inside me, the voice said, with no malice, only fact. He let out a breath, half a laugh. Good to know. For a while, there was silence again, just the hum of the systems, the faint pulse of light beneath his hands. He lost track of time, working carefully, translating data from alien patterns into something his tools could understand. Beneath the logic and machinery, though, he felt the subtle rhythm of something ancient, something not built but born. Hours passed. Or maybe minutes. The passage of time seemed to warp inside the ship. The deeper he moved, the more the corridors changed, walls curving, shifting, closing behind him as if the vessel were guiding him. He reached the central chamber, where a translucent sphere pulsed like a heart suspended in light. Tendrils of energy reached outward, merging with the ship's body. He placed his hand on the nearest conduit. The surface was warm. Alive. It shuddered beneath his touch, and for a heartbeat, he felt a pulse that wasn't his own. "You feel it too," the voice murmured. "The breath of stars trapped in flesh." Elias exhaled slowly. "So you're conscious." "I am more than that. I am she who governs this vessel. I am Aelthera of the Kareth Dominion. You stand inside my body, human." Her presence filled the chamber, not as an image, but as sensation, a harmony of color and thought. Elias could almost see her form in the light, tall, elegant, woven from starlight and shadow. He bowed slightly, unsure if she could even see the gesture. "Your Majesty. Titles are chains forged by fear. Speak plainly, Elias Crane." He hesitated at the sound of his name on her lips, or rather, in his mind. It felt strange, intimate. "Then tell me, Aelthera. What exactly happened to your ship?" The light around him dimmed. For a moment, he sensed pain, like static wrapped in sorrow. "An ambush. Our convoy was torn apart by those who once called themselves allies. My vessel shielded me, but the core was wounded. As was I." He studied the trembling energy field. "Your ship's neural matrix is collapsing. If it dies, then I will die with it." There was no fear in her words. Just inevitability. Elias set his jaw, adjusted his tools, and began rerouting power through a series of bioconduits that pulsed beneath his gloves. The work was delicate, the technology unlike anything he had ever encountered. Each movement felt like surgery on a living being. Hours later, he nearly collapsed from exhaustion. But the hum of the core steadied, its pulse returning to rhythm. The ship seemed to sigh, a deep, resonant sound that washed through the chamber. Then, her voice came again, softer this time. "You mend without asking what it costs." He wiped the sweat from his brow. "Maybe I'm just good at fixing things. Or perhaps," she said, "you are tired of watching them break." The light shifted again, dimming into a soft blue glow. Somewhere beyond the hull, stars drifted silently by. And though they had spoken only in fragments, something fragile had begun to form in that silence, a connection neither of them yet understood. The hum of the ship settled into a slow, steady rhythm, almost like breathing. Elias leaned against the nearest wall, listening. For the first time, he could swear the vessel, her vessel, was listening back. The days blurred into one another inside the Queen's vessel, though Elias had long since lost his sense of what a day was. The ship had no windows, no sunrise or dusk, only the rhythmic pulse of bioluminescent veins that brightened and dimmed as though following some alien circadian rhythm. The air was thick, charged with an electric hum that never ceased. Sometimes it felt like breathing through someone else's heartbeat. He worked in silence, moving along the spinal corridor of the ship with slow, careful steps. His tools clicked against organic metal, sending faint ripples through the surface. Every repair he made, every small weld, every sealed conduit, was met with a corresponding pulse of light, as though the ship acknowledged him. Yet it was not the vessel alone he felt anymore. It was her. Always her. Aelthera spoke to him intermittently now, never with words of command, only observation. Her voice brushed the edges of his thoughts like water running across stone. Sometimes she asked questions, about human sleep, or about the taste of rain, or about what silence felt like when one was alone. He answered as best he could, though each response felt inadequate, too small for the vastness of her curiosity. Today, she was quieter than usual. The conduits near the heart of the vessel flickered weakly, pulsing with uneven light. Elias was kneeling beside a damaged neural line when her presence returned, faint and fractured, like an echo in fog. "You work gently, human. Even my healers did not touch the ship this way." "I wasn't taught to rush," he murmured, soldering a shimmering membrane of conductive biofiber. Things break when you rush them. You speak of ships as if they were people. Sometimes they're better than people. Her laughter was soft, the sound of distant chimes in a vacuum. You are strange, Elias Crane. He smiled without meaning to. I've been told. For a moment, he could feel her attention sharpen, as though she leaned closer from within the walls. Then her voice changed, colored with something like sadness. You should not be here. My people, if they knew how close you stand to the core, they would see it as desecration. I was ordered here, he said. Your people weren't the only ones who objected. The silence that followed carried an understanding that neither of them needed to voice. Two empires pretending at peace, binding their wounds with treaties that could be torn apart with a single word. And in the middle of it all, one man and one queen, repairing what the universe itself seemed determined to destroy. He activated his wrist display, checking the neural synchronization charts. The readings were improving, but slowly. He leaned back, stretching his sore shoulders, and glanced toward a translucent panel beside him. Beneath it, something moved, fluid shapes of light, like small creatures swimming in a current. They emitted a faint song that only half reached the human ear. They're beautiful, he said quietly. They are the ship's memories, Aelthera replied. Each pulse is a fragment of where we've been. The song you hear is the sound of space remembered. Elias stared. You mean, you record your journeys in living light? In essence. Every vessel of the royal fleet carries a symphony of its travels. When the ship dies, the song dies with it. He reached out, fingertips grazing the warm surface. The light beneath responded, flaring softly at his touch. A sudden wave of sensation struck him, images, impressions, fields of silver grass beneath alien skies, a planet lit by twin moons, a procession of winged beings carrying luminous crowns. He stumbled back, heart pounding. What was that? You touched a living memory, she said gently. My ship mistook your curiosity for communion. His breath came fast, uneven. You didn't warn me. Would you have listened? He laughed shakily. Probably not. Then the lesson was worth the risk. The walls pulsed again, brighter this time, and he felt her presence deepen, closer, warmer, no longer a voice behind his eyes but beside him, like invisible light wrapping around his form. His chest tightened, not with fear but with an unfamiliar ache. Doesn't it tire you? He asked suddenly. Carrying all those memories, all those worlds. It does not tire me. But it isolates me. Every queen of my line bears the collective memory of our kind. When I speak, I am never alone. When I dream with thousands of voices whispering beneath my thoughts. Sounds lonely, he said softly. And you? He looked down at his scarred hands. I'm used to being alone. Ships don't talk back. Until now, I guess. There was that faint pulse again, her version of laughter, echoing through the hull. Then perhaps we both repair what solitude has broken. A sudden vibration ran through the deck. Alarms, soft but insistent, flared along the corridor. The ship's organic lights dimmed to crimson hues. Elias jumped to his feet. What's happening? External interference. Someone is trying to access the docking systems. Her voice sharpened, stripped of its serenity. Do not move from your position, Elias Crane. He pulled up his wrist display, reading a flood of encrypted signals. It's coming from outside, Earth command codes. They're trying to force a systems diagnostic. Your people dare to infiltrate my vessel. It's protocol, he said quickly. They don't trust me either. The ship shuddered again. A high-pitched resonance filled the air, and the bio-panels around him began to constrict, sealing the chamber. Aelthera's presence surged, commanding the vessel's defenses to respond. The air thickened with static. For a moment, Elias could see faint spectral threads in the air, streams of data, alive, weaving like lightning. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. The light steadied. The hum softened back into rhythm. "It is contained," she said finally, her voice steadier but quieter. "You may continue." Elias exhaled, trembling slightly. "You could have killed them. They would have killed me if they could." He didn't argue. Instead, he crouched again, returning to his work. The silence between them stretched long, filled with unspoken thoughts. When he finished rerouting the final conduit, the lights along the walls shimmered in perfect harmony for the first time. The air felt lighter. He leaned back and whispered, "It's stable." "You have done well, Elias Crane." Something in her tone, something small and unguarded, caught him off guard. He smiled faintly. "Coming from a queen, I'll take that as high praise." There was a pause, then a soft murmur that barely reached him, as if it weren't meant to be heard. "You may call me Aelthera." And before he could respond, the lights dimmed to a tranquil blue, the sound of her presence receding into silence, leaving him alone with the echo of her name in his mind. The ship had become quieter since the last pulse of interference. Quieter in the way a living thing grows still when it begins to trust. Elias had started to recognize the patterns of its sounds, the distant hum of its power veins, the faint sighs of pressure shifting through its organic conduits. It no longer recoiled from his touch. The walls even brightened slightly when he passed, responding to the rhythm of his heartbeat. He sat cross-legged near the central chamber, surrounded by tools and transparent plates of alien circuitry. His palms were covered in a faint silver residue from the biogel he used to repair neural fractures. Each repair required patience, precision, and something that went beyond engineering, intuition, almost empathy. The ship was not built to be understood. It was meant to be felt. He had started to feel her presence even before she spoke now, like a change in air pressure, or the warmth of sunlight through glass. "You haven't rested in 2 cycles, Aelthera's voice brushed against his thoughts, softer than before. "Even your kind must sleep." "I tried," he murmured, adjusting a tool's calibration. "The walls hum too loud. They echo what they sense." "Perhaps they hum because you do not." He glanced up, half smiling. "You can tell. Your mind is louder than you think, Elias Crane." He returned to his work, but her voice lingered, wrapping around him like a low melody. Over the past days, their exchanges had shifted, less formal, more fluid. She spoke less as a monarch and more as a curious soul rediscovering the texture of conversation. He found himself telling her things he hadn't spoken aloud in years, the color of Earth's skies before the atmosphere turned copper, the way rain felt on bare skin, the smell of ion engines after long voyages. She listened in silence, sometimes asking questions that surprised him. "When you dream, are the colors still true?" "I don't dream much anymore." "Then perhaps you have forgotten how." He didn't know how to answer that. He finished sealing a cluster of conduits, wiped his hands, and leaned back. The lights dimmed to a gentle violet, the ship's way of mimicking night. In that dim glow, a faint silhouette shimmered before him, an outline of light suspended in the air. He froze. She wasn't solid, not exactly, more a projection through the ship's neural field. Her form was tall, elegant, and luminous, woven from threads of energy that flickered in and out of visibility. Her eyes, if they could be called that, were radiant pools of pale gold. "You are startled." He nodded slowly. "You didn't tell me you could do that." "I could not. Until now, the ship's energy was unstable. But your repairs have allowed the interface to restore partial visualization. So I'm seeing you. A shadow of me." She tilted her head slightly, studying him. "Is it unpleasant?" "No," he said, voice low. "Just unexpected." The projection moved closer, each step gliding like light refracting through water. When she stood before him, the air grew warmer. She examined his face as though mapping every line, every scar. "Human eyes are strange," she murmured. They reflect too much sadness for creatures that still hope. He looked away, the corner of his mouth twitching. Maybe that's what keeps us from giving up. Her light pulsed faintly, he had learned that was how she laughed. Moments passed in quiet stillness, a fragile peace suspended between two beings who should have been enemies. The hum of the ship was softer now, almost like breathing. Then the silence broke. His wrist display flickered to life with a sharp tone. Incoming message, encrypted human command line. He hesitated before opening it. The message was brief, clinical, cold. Elias Crane, your mission parameters remain unchanged. Complete vessel restoration and disengage immediately. Do not maintain prolonged communication with the entity. Contact is unauthorized and will be logged. He stared at it for a long time before deactivating the display. Your people speak to you again, Aeltheras said quietly. He nodded. They think you're manipulating me. And are you manipulated? He looked at her. Her projection shimmered faintly, her features unreadable, half light, half shadow. No, he said. Not yet. She regarded him for a moment, then stepped closer, the light of her form almost brushing his chest. They do not understand. The bond between a vessel and its caretaker is not domination, it is resonance. Resonance, he repeated. Our ships respond to thought, to emotion. To heal them, you must give part of yourself to their rhythm. You have done this without knowing. That is why I can appear to you now. Elias felt a chill crawl along his spine. You mean the ship is, inside me now? Not yet. But soon, if you continue. He hesitated. Should I stop? Her light dimmed, almost sorrowfully. Would you want to? He didn't answer. The question lingered between them, unspoken but heavy. Later, when she vanished back into the ship's hum, he lay beside the glowing conduits, unable to sleep. The vessel pulsed gently around him, its heartbeat steady and slow. He wondered if he was imagining it, the faint echo of another pulse beneath his own, matching rhythm, aligning breath. The next cycle brought new challenges. The power core required realignment, the quantum bionodes regulating the ship's memory field had fractured under stress. When Elias reached inside the living circuitry, the system reacted, threads of light coiled around his wrists like liquid metal. He could feel Aelthera through them, her consciousness intertwined with every pulse. You risk much touching the neural web directly, she warned. It can burn through your thoughts. Then guide me, he said. And she did. Her presence moved with his hands, guiding each motion, each adjustment. Together they stabilized the current, sealed the ruptures, and reconnected the failing pathways. When it was over, he fell to one knee, dizzy, sweat running down his face. You endure well for a fragile being, she murmured. But you give too much each time. The ship will remember your essence now. It may call for you, even when you are gone. He looked up at her fading light. And if I answer? Then the stars themselves may envy us, she whispered. The lights dimmed, the hum softened, and Elias sat in the quiet, pulse still echoing in unison with something vast and unknowable. He could no longer tell where the machine ended and where he began. The ship shivered beneath Elias's feet, subtle at first, then violently, as though the walls themselves were inhaling sharply and preparing to expel him. The corridors, once passive and responsive to his touch, twisted in on themselves, pulsing with erratic bursts of crimson light. The hum had escalated into a low, threatening growl, vibrating through the floors and walls, echoing in his chest. Do not panic, Aelthera's voice pierced his mind, urgent, sharp, unlike the calm tones he had grown accustomed to. The ship's self-defense protocols have activated. I am, struggling. Struggling how? Elias shouted over the rising resonance, trying to steady himself as the walls expanded and contracted like a lung. Sparks of bioelectricity danced along the conduits around him. The air thickened, making each breath heavy and metallic. It senses you as a threat now. Your presence, your repairs, some of it interprets as corruption. I cannot fully override the defense without exposing my neural seed. Elias froze. Neural seed. The words registered slowly, like metal sinking into water. Neural seed. It is a fragment of my consciousness preserved within the ship. Should my body perish, it carries my essence forward, maintaining command and memory. If I lose control, it will overwrite me, and all I am will cease to exist. He swallowed, pulse hammering. So if I get caught in this, you could lose yourself. Exactly. Her voice trembled, faint but resolute. And so could you. The corridors narrowed suddenly, trapping him in a corridor lined with organic conduits writhing like serpents. Sparks flew across the walls, creating a flickering, chaotic cage. Elias leapt aside as a tendril of glowing membrane shot toward him, reacting to his every move. He could feel the ship watching, judging, shifting in anticipation. "Tell me what to do," he yelled. "First, calm yourself." Her presence flowed into him, threading through his mind. He felt it like warmth in his chest, radiating in harmony with his heartbeat. "Synchronize with me. Feel my pulse. You must override the core sequence manually. I cannot reach it fully while defending against the system's aggression." Elias closed his eyes, focusing, breathing in rhythm with the ship's throbbing pulse. The corridors trembled around him, but he imagined the pulse of light beneath his hands, the way it had guided him before. Slowly, methodically, he placed his fingers along the exposed conduits, feeling the surge of neural energy, raw and alive. The threads recoiled, sensing his intent, then lashed again, snapping dangerously close to his wrists. Pain and heat surged up his arms, but he held firm. He whispered instructions aloud to himself, half prayers, half engineering commands, translating alien pulses into actions his hands could follow. "Now, trace the secondary harmonics," Aelthera murmured. "You can reach the node that stabilizes the core. Step lightly, but decisively." Elias leaned over a pulsating panel, feeling the hum radiate through his fingers. Sparks of pure energy danced along his gloves, almost like lightning contained within liquid. Each adjustment required intuition as much as skill. He rerouted energy along a path no human engineer should have been able to comprehend, synchronizing it with her own consciousness. A sudden tremor slammed him against the wall, and he gasped for air. The conduits writhed violently, blue and white light cracking like frozen stars. "Elias." Her voice was a blade of worry and command. He pushed himself up and pressed harder against the core interface, overriding a cascade of energy spirals, recalibrating the bioneural circuits with trembling precision. Sweat burned in his eyes, and the smell of ozone thickened the air. Sparks ignited across the membranes, arcs of pure energy illuminating the chamber like miniature nova explosions. "You are almost there," she cried. "The seed is stabilizing. But it resists your touch." He gritted his teeth, refusing to pull back. For the first time, he sensed the ship's intelligence as a separate entity, a predator and protector intertwined. The corridors constricted further, sending jolts of feedback through his body. Pain flared along his arms, and he tasted iron in his mouth. Yet he continued, one hand on the core, the other redirecting the neural conduits, guiding the erratic energy into order. A wave of light erupted from the central node, engulfing him in a dazzling cocoon of iridescent color. The ship pulsed violently, then began to calm, gradually, hesitantly, like a wounded creature learning to trust again. His hands were scorched, the heat burning through his gloves, but the core hummed steadily now. "It is quieting," Aelthera breathed, her voice softer, almost fragile. "You have done it. The system is stable. I am intact." Elias collapsed against the floor, every muscle trembling. You're okay," he rasped, though part of him couldn't believe the words. "I am. Because of you." Her presence flowed toward him, warmth and light threading through the corridors like liquid fire. You have not only repaired the vessel. You have preserved a fragment of me that cannot be replaced. Few have ever accomplished this, Elias Crane. He shook his head weakly, fingers brushing against the glowing panels. I didn't even know what I was touching half the time. And yet you persisted. Her tone was more intimate than it had ever been. Perhaps you were meant to touch me, and not just the ship. The corridors slowly returned to their earlier rhythm, the pulses of bioluminescent veins synchronized once more, gentle, welcoming. Sparks faded, the metallic smell dissipated, leaving only the faint tang of salt and electricity. Elias stood, legs unsteady, hands still tingling from residual energy. He looked around the chamber, half expecting her projection to appear, but she remained within the hum of the ship, omnipresent yet unseen. Rest now, she whispered. Tomorrow, the work will continue, but for tonight, allow yourself peace. He sank to the floor, exhausted, listening to the heartbeat of the vessel beneath him, feeling her presence like warmth in his chest. For the first time, he realized that what he had repaired was more than metal and neural pathways. He had bridged something vast, something alive, something that existed between worlds, between species, between hearts. And though he could not yet see the path forward, he understood one undeniable truth: their fates, fragile and entwined, had become inseparable. The corridors were calm now, though the residual tremors of the ship's defenses lingered like aftershocks, soft pulses beneath his feet. Elias moved slowly, his body still sore from the previous day's struggle, hands trembling from the raw energy he had channeled. Every step he took echoed softly against the organic walls, which seemed to breathe along with him, synchronizing to the rhythm of his pulse. The central chamber glowed faintly, bathing the space in violet and silver light, a quiet testament to the fragile victory he and the Queen had won together. He had expected her to appear immediately, to step from the walls in her luminous projection, but she did not. Instead, her presence was subtle, brushing against his mind like wind through reeds, gentle but insistent. You awakened slowly, Elias Crane, her voice whispered, a thread of warmth in the sterile air. He paused, leaning against the smooth, living surface of a conduit. I needed to. The shock yesterday, it wasn't just physical. I know. You risked yourself, and yet you bore no fear. There is something in you the universe rarely allows to exist, a courage untethered from arrogance. He swallowed, unsure whether to feel proud or uneasy. Maybe I've spent too long fixing things that can't talk back. I'm used to being ignored by the universe. And yet, here you are, conversing with one that is alive, that listens, that trusts you, she said, her tone layered with curiosity and something else, something he could not name. You are unlike your kind. He shook his head, faintly smiling. I've been called worse. Her presence pulsed lightly in response, a gesture that reminded him more of a heartbeat than a voice. He found himself studying the corridors, the veins of the ship that now glowed steady and strong, remembering every flicker and tremor that had threatened to undo them. Somewhere, in the intersection of metal, membrane, and light, there was life, and now he had become part of it. A low alarm hummed faintly from the docking bay. Elias frowned and pulled up his wrist display. The readout was terse. Security protocols from both Kareth and Human Command were converging on his location. Unauthorized presence had been detected within the vessel. They continue to distrust you, Aeltheras said, voice calm but with an undercurrent of warning. They have no comprehension of the bond that now exists between us. Neither do I, fully, he admitted. I know I shouldn't be trusted. Neither should you. Yet we survived. Yes, she replied, a faint echo of amusement threading her words. And survive means nothing if you do not continue beyond this moment. Elias traced a hand over the nearest conduit. You're talking like a prophet. Or a queen who has learned the fragility of survival, she countered. Her presence pressed lightly against his thoughts, warm, intimate. Do you understand what you've done, Elias? The ship is alive because you chose to listen to it, not merely fix it. You have entwined yourself with my essence. He flinched at the weight of her words. Then what now? Once the repairs are complete, you'll leave. I'll go back to whatever passes for a life out here. Do you truly believe that is possible? Her tone softened, almost imperceptibly tender. Once a human touches the core of a living vessel, once the neural harmonics intertwine, distance becomes irrelevant. You will feel the ship. You will feel me. The thought sent a strange warmth through him, both thrilling and terrifying. I've felt a lot already. Enough to know I don't want to stop. Her presence surged, flowing through him like light through water. Then you will not. And I. She hesitated, the projection of her presence flickering. I will not leave you behind, Elias Crane. He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, the air shifted again. A presence entered the docking bay, a ripple of movement outside the walls. Figures in armored suits, Kareth royal guards, now appeared at the edges of the corridors, their luminous eyes fixed on him with unreadable intent. They question your place here, she whispered urgently. I cannot shield you indefinitely. Elias swallowed, heart hammering. Then let them question. I won't run. The guards advanced, each step sending soft pulses through the living floor. The walls brightened defensively, veins of energy extending along the corridors like warning tendrils. Elias stepped forward to meet them, tools clutched in his hands, but no threat in his posture. They will test you, Aelthera warned, her tone taut. Your actions in this chamber will determine whether you survive, and whether I am free to leave with my vessel intact. He nodded, gripping a welding torch tightly, knowing instinctively that what was at stake was no longer just a repair job. It was trust. It was life and consciousness and the tenuous bridge between species. The air shimmered as the guards stopped a few paces away, hesitant under the combined pressure of the living ship and her presence. Remember, she murmured softly, even in conflict, you are part of this vessel. Act with it as you have acted with me. He took a slow breath, feeling the rhythm of the ship pulse through him, aligning with the pattern of his own heartbeat. The veins of light along the walls responded, brightening in resonance with his intention. He lifted his hands, not to strike, but to show no threat. The guards paused, sensing the unusual dynamic, unsure how to approach a human who had become one with the living vessel of their queen. Elias felt her presence surge, warm and steady, brushing against his consciousness like a hand on his shoulder. You have made them hesitate, she said, softly, with a tone that carried relief. But remember, Elias, hesitation is fragile. And the path forward is even more fragile still. He nodded again, sweat still running down his temples. Then we tread carefully, he murmured. Yes. And together, she replied. In that moment, with the lights of the living ship bathing them both in silver and violet, Elias understood that he was no longer just a mechanic. He was a participant in something vast, something dangerous, and something breathtakingly beautiful. The fate of the vessel, of the queen, and perhaps of two empires hung on the fragile tether they had forged, and the next steps they took would define everything that came after. And for the first time, Elias felt the weight of choice not as fear, but as possibility. The ship's corridors hummed gently, steady and unthreatening for the first time since Elias had arrived. The once chaotic pulses of the bioneural conduits had settled into a tranquil rhythm, the veins of light flowing in harmonious waves, almost like the breath of a living organism at rest. Elias moved slowly through the chambers, each step a quiet meditation on the journey that had brought him here. His hands, still bearing faint burns from the previous trials, traced the conduits as if to reassure himself that the vessel, and its queen, were whole. He had learned more in these cycles than any human engineer should have been capable of understanding, the subtle language of living circuits, the rhythm of thought embedded in metal and membrane, and the fragile threads of trust between species whose histories were written in blood and starlight. Yet now, as he approached the observation bay, he realized the danger had not only been external. It had been the unspoken fear that he would falter, that she would falter, that the bond they had forged could unravel under the weight of politics and old enmities. The bay shimmered with the light of a distant star, fractured through the cracked surface of Viral, 9 below. Through it, Elias could see the ruins of a world scarred by centuries of conflict, glowing faintly beneath the pale blue atmosphere of the orbital station. The wreckage of history lay in silence, and yet, within this ship, life persisted. He found Aelthera standing near the viewport, a luminous presence, her form more substantial than ever, threads of energy coiling around her like a crown of light. "You have done what few could, Elias Crane," she said, voice calm, yet threaded with warmth. "The vessel is restored, the seed stabilized, and the defenses harmonized. My people may question, your people may doubt, yet the bridge we have forged cannot be undone." He nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her words. "It was never just the ship," he murmured. "It was you. And somehow, you trusted me to be here." "Trust is the currency of survival," she replied, her tone almost tender. "You have given more than skill. You have given resonance, and it has preserved what could have been lost to fear and misunderstanding." The observation bay doors hissed open, and a contingent of Kareth advisors entered, their glowing eyes observing the human cautiously. Elias braced himself, though he did not step back. The air shimmered with the residual presence of Aelthera, and he felt the subtle pressure of her authority filling the space. "They have come to witness," she murmured. "Do not falter. Speak with the clarity you have learned within my vessel." One of the senior advisors, a tall figure whose skin shimmered with silver patterns, stepped forward. "Human engineer, your work has surpassed expectations. The Queen's vessel is stable, and the neural seed is fully integrated. Yet your continued presence remains questionable." Elias straightened, shoulders squared. "I've repaired what needed repairing, and I've honored the ship and its queen. I have no desire to overstep, but I will not abandon what we've built here. Not now." Aelthera's presence flowed through the bay, subtle yet undeniable. The advisors paused, sensing the bond between human and vessel, between human and queen. Finally, after a long silence, the lead advisor inclined his head. "Then it is acknowledged. The vessel's survival is intertwined with your presence. Let it be so." Relief washed over Elias in quiet waves. He turned his attention to the Queen. "And you?" he asked softly. "What now?" "Now, we depart," she said, the light of her form pulsing like a heartbeat. "The alliances are tentative, yet they hold. The vessel carries me and the promise of continued dialogue. And you, Elias Crane, you are no longer merely a guest. You are part of this living entity, part of what it is to endure, to connect across divides that were once thought insurmountable." He swallowed, feeling the weight of her words settle in his chest. "I've always thought of myself as a mechanic, someone who fixes things. I didn't know I could be part of something like this." "You have learned the truth of creation," she said softly. "Repairing is not only restoration, it is understanding, it is communion. And through it, you have found your place among the stars, even if the journey has been perilous." Elias extended a hand, and for the first time, he felt her projection solidify in the air before him, tendrils of energy brushing his palm. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Not as a command, but as an offering. A bridge over centuries of war and mistrust, suspended in light and resonance." He hesitated for the briefest moment, feeling the pulse of the ship beneath him, feeling her consciousness intertwined with every neural circuit and biofiber. Then he nodded, hand closing over hers. "I will." The observation bay doors opened again, revealing the outer docking corridor. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass, and Viral 9's fractured surface lay below like a memory of destruction. Elias could feel the vessel vibrating gently beneath him, a living, breathing testament to the union of two worlds. "We leave as one," she said, voice steady, luminous. "And though the path forward may be uncertain, our steps are shared. Your courage has rewritten the story of what it means to repair, to trust, and to endure." He looked around, taking in the glowing veins of the ship, the soft hum that resonated in his chest as if it were part of him. "Then let's go," he said quietly, almost to himself. The ship lifted, the engines harmonizing with the rhythms of its neural core. Light cascaded through the corridors, painting everything in iridescent patterns that shifted with each pulse of energy. Outside, the stars stretched and shimmered, and the dark expanse of space seemed to lean closer, as though eager to witness their passage. Ael'Thara's form remained beside him, a luminous presence threading through the vessel, through his consciousness. "Together, Elias Crane," she whispered, and the words resonated deeper than any echo he had ever known. As they ascended into the void, leaving the fractured world below, the human mechanic and the alien queen moved as one, two souls intertwined, their fates now inseparable, bound by trust, courage, and the fragile, radiant beauty of connection. The ship pulsed beneath them, alive and whole, carrying not just a queen or a human, but the proof that understanding could bridge the vastest of divides. And in that infinite stretch of starlight, Elias understood that some repairs were more than mechanical, they were the mending of hearts, of histories, and of possibilities once thought lost. And this story, now complete, carried with it the quiet, unshakable truth that even amidst galaxies divided by war and pride, trust and resonance could endure, shaping the future with a light that would not fade.